Welcome, everybody, to the ALF Operations Podcast, where we talk compliance, operation, and whatever else is going on in the assisted living world. Presented by alfboss.
Hey, everybody, Pascal here with the ALF Boss Podcast, and today I am honored to have a fellow comrade in my community, in the assisted living community. He operates 2 buildings. His name is Saul Chapnick. A lot of you know him. He's been around for quite a while, and he does an amazing job. Sal, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me on, Pascal.
Tell us a little bit more about yourself. I just touched briefly, but I know there's a lot more to the story here, so let's hear it.
So basically, and this happened serendipitously. It did not happen purposely or anything, but over the years, I've been asked by ALF owners to come in, and their ALFs have been in stress or financial stress or low census or staff morale, and for me to fix up the place. And I have a very good batting record with that. It depends on how much support the owners sincerely have. And I fixed up many places. I mean, my proudest story is going into an ALF that the owners asked me to fix up. A day after they asked me to come in, ACA came in, gave us 26 tags, and my colleague was saying, "Get out of there, it's a no-win situation." And within a month, we were deficiency clear. And that was during a time when the Miami Herald was writing these scathing articles about ALFs. And when ACA came the month later, they came in with guns blazing, ready to shut us down. And they looked at me, they said, "How did you do it?" And I said, simply, "We just listened to you and followed regulations, and that's all that it takes."
It's simple, but it's not simple,
Right.
But at the end of the day, the regs are there, and it's just, you just have to follow what they are. Some are tougher than others, but it all comes down to systems, right, Sal? You have to
It
put
all
systems
comes
in place.
down to systems, to making sure your managerial team is smarter than you so they make you look good, and hiring the right people to get it done.
Unfortunately, right now, it's really tough, I know, in the industry to hire people, just to get people hired in period. But, it's tough. And also, when it comes down to that, residents also, it depends on what kind of residents you have. If you just take every resident that's referred to you, you're
Right.
going to run into disasters, right, Sal?
Yes. In other words, the key is patience, and the key is understanding who you are as an assisted living facility. Each assisted living facility has its own personality, and you have to figure out or determine what that personality is. So our newest acquisition, how do I say this so I'm diplomatic? Before we came on, they took anybody and everybody, from the homeless to those, and we have a mental health license, to those who had heavy duty dementia, to those who had a violent past. You can't do that. You have to have standards, and you have to understand, how do you carry out the level of care?
Definitely agree. And to touch on that point, you see a lot of new facilities fall into that trap.
Right.
They just want to fill those beds because they just opened up, or they just took over a building, and they got corporate pressure. And what happens is they take, let's be politically correct, I don't want to say the scraps, but the referrals that everybody is not wanting to take, which usually, you're dealing with wounds, you're dealing with violent behavior, you're dealing with constant, I like to call them ACA callers, or, the ones who just, nobody wants those residents. They've been around, but new facilities trying to fill beds, they take them, and boom, you're running. It just takes one resident to raise hell in the whole facility.
Oh my God, you're so right, Pascal. And the other thing is, I'm just going to put aside is, because we're mental health, and we take mental health seriously, and we understand it, we take a lot of residents who've had a past of, let's say, and this is a true case, that they assaulted police officers. But I read the records very carefully, and sometimes we take them in. It could be a case like these folks weren't medicated properly. And so we work with the jail system and everything to see which one is good, and they're our best residents, you know. So sometimes a sketchy history doesn't mean that they're going to be a bad resident. I shouldn't say bad resident, I'll say inappropriate resident.
Correct. Yeah, I do agree on that as well. Just to touch base on, we just jumped right into this thing, so that, that's fine. To touch base what you're saying as far as your identity, I do try to tell facilities this, all the time. Like you said, you do have to find an identity. You can't go with those younger residents that have those type of behaviors and then have a whole of independent older residents. It kind of it conflicts a little bit, right? When you mix up the populations and. Well,
actually, I see it as chronological age versus developmental age. Especially in both cases, but now that I'm in mental health, especially in mental health. So schizophrenia, let's say, most people get diagnosed with schizophrenia. We would never, ever, we're very leery about admitting someone in their 20s and 30s because they're like teenagers once they're hit with that shock of diagnosis. And they have to go through a process before they accept who they are. Now, that's a rule of thumb, but on the other hand, I have taken folks in their 30s that are model residents. So Pascal, what it comes down to, and it's my critique of the industry, but I'm not going to put in the critique, is that you really have to understand how to do a dawn assessment of a psychological case, and also if it's a standard ALF of the elderly process to see if they belong.
Correct. And you'll be surprised, and I stress this all the time, you have to go see the residents. You have to do an evaluation. All this taking the word of the social worker or placement person, and I see it all the time, and they're just, okay, sounds good, send them on over. Resident gets to the facility and it's a disaster. It's the resident's trying to elope, the resident is just not appropriate for the setting.
Yeah, and the disasters is twofold. The first disaster is, and I'll be unpolitically correct, is discharge planners lie. They lie because they're under pressure from the hospital that the insurance ran out. So they'll tell you, yes, they're walkie-talkies, yes, they could take care of themselves, and then when you get them, they can't even get out of their wheelchair. And I've had plenty of cases like that.
You mean that that really happened, Saul?
Oh my God, Pascal.
I'm just messing with you.
It's like,
we got that, and then we got the families that paint the greatest picture that the resident, he's never had any issues, and then you actually find out the real story, what was going on. And it's like, oh.
Yeah, but with families, I give them latitude because families are not subjective. They are extremely subjective. So you have to know how to interview families, and that's it. Yeah. And the other case is, if I'll make this quick. If you get a last minute call from the hospital saying this guy's being discharged tomorrow, that's a red flag. We're waiting for the past month.
On a Friday.
Friday.
Those are the best ones. Oh, he's got great money. It's Friday like 3:00, but it's got to be done today. Yeah. I mean, we live and learn. I've been there. I've done this for like 30 years. I've been there, and like all these things we're talking about, I've done that. We're talking 15 some years ago. Okay, great, send them on over. What do you know? Saturday, get a call. You had an elopement or whatever the heck happened. It's disaster. You learn from mistakes, and unfortunately, in this, and that's why I do the podcast. We try to give somebody some of our wisdom nuggets we've learned over time, and try to prevent some of the mistakes.
Yeah.
So
we continue to make mistakes.
And we continue to learn.
Exactly.
Every day is different. Just when you think you've seen everything, something new pops up. Oh God, let's just take this past year. We've never dealt with COVID. We've been doing this forever, and all of a sudden a big curveball got thrown in. I was just like, wow. It's like, how do we deal with this? So you never know. That's life, and that's our industry for sure. It's no day's the same, and it's challenging, but So how did you get in ALS period? Well, how did you get into this industry?
It's interesting. I received my MSW in 1980, and I was one of the administrators at the second largest senior center in Brooklyn, 2,500 residents, 2,500 members, and we had 500 people a day come in. As time came on in those years, and also now, but really in those years, social workers got paid very little. And so I went into the family business for 20 years, which was lumber and building supplies. And also, I still kept my finger in the till with social work. I led weekly senior adult groups at Jewish Family Service, always kept my finger in the till. Around 1990, what can I do? And I was looking into senior housing. And then when it came time that my son did leave the house, I said, how do I combine both my business skills and my social skills and put it together? Hence the birth of the ALF world. Actually, it started in New York. I went to all the conferences for 10 years, but I ended up in Florida. And I've been very brazen about it and talked about it in workshops and all. I'm very disappointed in the industry. Yeah. The ALF industry is very flawed. That's FLAWED. And so I have many families that come in and they say, how could we trust you? And I simply look at them and I say, you cannot trust me. You have to do a little homework, look up my name, look up the places I read, but you cannot trust me because that's who we are. And Pascal, I've said it so many times in Southeast Florida, we have 1,200 ALFs, and I cannot recommend 1,185.
All right, Saul. So what's the favorite part of your job?
Growth. The favorite part of my job is seeing two things: an educated, dedicated staff that when I come into these places, they just do their job, and Midtown is a work in progress, but Merriment, we hardly lose staff because it's a positive work environment. And also seeing the residents taking charge of their lives. In other words, when I mentioned before about the ALF world being flawed, it's very infantilizing. You have a monthly meeting. We have weekly town meetings at our places. So you have a resident meeting and they raise their hand and they say, we want bingo, we want this, we want that. And then the administrator, the program supervisor arranges someone to go outside. Half of our programs are led by our residents. And that's what an ALF should be, that they continue with the integrity and taking charge of their lives. And we're not going to baby them, and we're not going to say, I want, we'll give, I want, we'll give. No, you want this? What are you going to do? And that is of tremendous pride when I see that transformation take place.
Now, you did mention one part there, the staff. And I want to touch on that a little bit. As you know, well, throughout the years, I went through many different staffs. And right now, for the past 5 years, we have one kind of like what you just mentioned there. They are just amazing. It's like a family. I have staff.
Not a family, professional. They're professional.
Professional, but they care about each other. They don't want, somebody doesn't want to call in. They don't want to let the other person down because they know they have to pick up the slack. They throw each other birthday parties. It's like night and day. And it's like, as an administrator, it's such a relief when you have that to fall back on. When you're away from the building, it's going to be ran just like, if you would, and I've been through other staffs that I've had in the past, the pieces weren't there or whatever. And it's just like, oh my God, I have to watch everything. And it's just, my stress level is a lot lower, these past few years with an amazing staff. It's just, and it just came together. You get a few good pieces and they recruit other pieces. And people ask me how you do it. And it's tough. It's close to getting lucky, but it's putting the right pieces.
There is some luck involved, yes.
Getting rid of, the bad apples as soon as because now if I hire somebody and they're not a fit, this staff will drive them, they'll come to the office, they'll tell me right away, this one is not, no, but if it's a lot of places you have rookies come on and they treat them like hell, and it's really, I wanted to touch base on that a good staff, a team, it's like, I see a lot of people complaining about running the ALFs right now, everybody's down on it, but when you have the staff is not great. It can be a nightmare, for sure. All right. So you touched on Merriment. That's more of a mental health, right? Or
yes.
Okay. Now that's much different than operating, I guess, one with older residents, right? Is it?
Well, in my case, it is at Merriment, not necessarily Midtown, which is also mental health, because the average age of Merriment is 65 years old. The median age is 58 years old. So it's a younger crowd. So the staff is really there for behavioral rather than for ADL, which is wonderful.
Yes.
If they're trained right.
Yes. And that does make a huge difference as well, the quality of the residents. Like when you have that quality of residents, they don't really need help bathing, dressing, things like that. And it's
as much.
It's a whole different thing operational wise. Now, when you have all residents, you have 80 residents that are all in wheelchairs that need to be bathed and showered every morning and dressed, and that's a lot of work. That's a lot of burden on the staff. So
and burden on your revenue.
Exactly.
The creep. The creep concept that time is taken away. It costs you as an administrator.
And as a compliance standpoint, I've made a switch from that. We've been able, been blessed. We've been able to be more picky, with residents that are higher functioning. Your ACA issues, things like that, go down when you have residents that can speak for themselves. Mary fell. Mary has dementia. Mary can't explain how she fell, or she babbles, that somebody pushed her, which we all, that didn't happen. They go to the hospital calls DCF, and then you have problems. But when you have higher functioning that can speak, say, I went to the bathroom and I just missed gauge and I fell. I found a lot less DCF complaints and ACA complaints with higher functioning residents.
Interesting.
So that's been less stress as well. So if somebody was coming into the industry, and they wanted to get started, what words of wisdom would you give them to get off on the right foot?
You want to know what their ultimate goal is. Is their ultimate goal to be a DON, to be this? But my suggestion is start at a position start at a more rank and file position, and then work yourself up.
Get some experience, right?
Get some experience. Let me tell you, my first supervisor was Campbell Epps, who really taught me, and I was a marketer, and I was making bupkis when I started. But the experience was second to none. And put your heart into it.
Because you could take that core training class, right? You could take that core training class, and you're going to know some of the regs. You're going to know, but how to deal with real life situations, when it actually happens, it's totally different. And you can only learn that from experience,
Listen, the core class does not teach you how to be an administrator. The core class teaches you regulations, period.
Correct.
So and a lot of folks graduate and said, no, you're not. You don't know about gerontology, or you don't know about mental health. You don't know how to conduct a business, how to do a ledger. You don't know family dynamics. All that is required to get core is that you have a GED or high school diploma, something else, and you're not a criminal. I would have won an 18-year-old, and you have to be over 18. I would have won an 18-year-old who passed core to take care of my mother. I'm sorry.
You're kind of set up to how to do an evaluation on a resident.
No.
You have no
clue, period.
You got a beautiful place. You spend all your money into it. And then they're like, okay, well, where do I get residents from? Because, of course, they have no connections. So definitely, I see everybody just throwing themselves into it, and they call me with all these questions, and I'm like, you need to get some experience. That's what I would say. Go, if it's just go be an activity director, so at least intervene with the residents, see how it's like,
Perfect.
and something like that. So definitely, you do recommend get some experience. People like us, we're looking for assistance all the time. So reach out to a local facility and start in a smaller facility too. I would say it depends what they're looking for. There's the high corporate end, there's high end. There's there's the smaller place, mom and pops. Like you said, it depends what kind of field they want to go into. You know? But if they're looking to open their own facility, I would say either go mentor with somebody for 6 months or something, just to get your feet in the door, and connections. So I know you've been around, for a while, and you do a lot of, you did placement, things like that, and connections take time and take effort. A lot of people, their first complaint is, I can't get any residents. How do I get residents? I mean, you got to know people, right?
Well, you have to know people, and you also have to know how to work it. It's not just going to a marketing meeting and saying, oh, I met so-and-so. No, you really have, and you also, and I don't let out all my secrets on this, you have to really think outside the box and say, all the marketing people are going there. All the marketing people are supporting Alzheimer's. What should I do to get over there and to get referrals? And most of my referrals come from non-traditional connections. And that's the only secret I'll tell you. Look non-traditional. Don't look at where everyone's going, because that pie only has so many slices.
Correct. I definitely agree with that. And those pies, you can't just go to the table and put your hands on and say, give me residents. You have to build friendships. You have to build, I tell them, you got to make real friends. Actually, you can't just say, hey, because like you said, there's 1,200 ALFs in our area or something like that. Everybody wants residents. Everybody wants the same thing. There's only so many placement agencies, so many social workers, so many, and everybody is saying the same thing, but.
Right.
So you got to
and don't come in with gimme, because everyone wants residents. You have to put out.
It's give. You give first, and eventually you hope to get pay back the goodwill. And that's kind of like any business too. But this is even more so. So. All right, so I'm not going to take up too much more of your time. I know you got a long day, busy day.
I could do this all day. I love talking about the industry, and I do thank you for having me on your podcast, Pascal.
No, thank you for joining us, and take care. Any closing words? Or
just know that you're responsible for people's lives, and these people are paying your salary. You're not doing them a favor; they're doing you a favor. And if you understand that from the 24/7, you're going to run an outstanding assisted living facility.
Amen. And totally agree with you. All right, Saul. Have a good one, my friend.